To create the full fly around animation, the first thing I have to do is create a path for my camera to follow. I'm going to do that by going and starting a sketch on the top plane, going normal to the top plane, zooming out. I want to make sure I have plenty of space so when I dimension my circle that I'm going to create, it doesn't go off my screen. I'm going to click the center point circle, start my circle at the origin, pull outside the mug. The circle then gets smart dimensioned as a 12-inch diameter. I'm going to use this now to create a spiral around the mug. I will exit the sketch, go back to an isometric view of my part, zoom out a little bit to be able to see, make sure the sketch stays selected, and under the Features tool, come all the way down to Curves. Below Curves, at the very bottom, is Helix and Spiral. Go ahead and click that. What your settings now give you is 3 boxes to set. Number 1 is the distance, vertical distance in this case, between the spirals. I have set mine at 4 inches. You can use that measurement, something shorter or a little taller. I wouldn't go much taller than this though. The number of trips around, I've set it at 2 revolutions. I would do 1 or 2, really no more than that. And I'm going to set the start angle at 0. As you can see, my start point and my potential end point are right in front of the front view. Since I put my decal on the mug, basically on the front view, that's a great place for me to start and end. You can choose this to start at any point you want in the circle by changing the angle. I'm going to hit accept when it's done. I will now see my spiral. To make my new motion study, I'm going to right click down here where it says motion study, since I've already created one, and say create new motion study. This gives me a new study to use. Now, to make sure that I am able to export my animation when I'm done with it, I need to do 2 things. Number 1, I need to make sure that auto key is turned on. It's the blue diamond with the lightning bolt here. When my cursor's not on it, it will look like a gray pushed in button. That's what it should look like. The second step to make sure I'm able to export at the end is right here where it says orientation and camera views. I'm going to right click and make sure that disable view key creation is unchecked. So as I right click on orientation, none of the options are showing. None of these options are showing. That will make you be able to export yours at the end. What I want to do now is right click where it says, right click where it says SolidWorks there and add a camera. Yours may say something about lights and cameras. It depends on whether you have photo view turned on or not. If you have photo view turned on, right click where it says SolidWorks likes and say add camera. I now have a camera, and in my project view here, I can see the camera. The camera has 3 parts. The camera itself, which is the actual positioning. The red dot, that's the focus point of the camera or what the camera is pointed at during your animation. And then your view zoom window. The first change I'm going to make is I'm going to actually change the position. Position by selection. You've got 2 choices on your spiral. You can start at the bottom and spiral up, or you can start at the top and spiral down. I'm going to go ahead and start at the top and spiral down. As I go to select the spiral, I do not want to select the very end endpoint. That will attach the camera to the endpoint and it won't travel throughout my animation. I want to come just to the side of it. You'll notice I'm getting a visual glitch. You may or may not get the same. It's going to then put the camera on the start point of the spiral. I'm then going to go for my target point. Target point by selection. This lets me move the target point. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move the target point over the origin. For a previous animation, I had gone into show hide and hid the origin. I'm going to go ahead and turn that back on for this one. Go ahead and position it directly above the origin. Next, I'm going to go to the front view of the mug and make sure that from the front view perspective, it's about in the center from the top to bottom. It does not have to be exact. I'm going to go ahead and double check it from the top and make sure I stayed over the origin. I've set that point correctly. Now, the last thing I want to do is I'm going to set the zoom by moving this picture in and out. Having tried this a few times, I find that if I zoom far enough out that I can see the whole mug plus some on each side, I will be able to see the whole mug the entire time and I won't end up cutting off part of the mug. Okay? This is something I could make it and then adjust it at both my start and end if I needed to. Once I've got this all set the way I want it for the start of my video, I click the green check mark to accept it. I will only see the camera view now as the way it looks from the beginning. My next step is to drag my time bar, which is this gray line, out to 10 seconds. 5 seconds elapsed seems to work really good for this size of a project. Once I've done that, I'm going to find the camera under SOLIDWORKS Lights. There is my camera 1. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to click Properties. It's going to give me the 2 views again. This time I'm going to zoom out in the project window. I'm going to click Position by Selection again, right here where it says Edge 1. And I'm going to zoom in to the bottom of my spiral. Again, I may get my error, but I should be able to click here. And now it's going to be pointed more up, as though I was looking essentially from the ground up at the mug. The nice part is, since I left plenty of room before, I'm not cutting off any part of the mug as I get to this portion. When I accept it, you'll notice I go back to camera view. In this final position, I have a gray bar with a green bar with 2 gray bars above it. This tells me that when I export this, it will be in camera view, or basically from this perspective. One thing I want to do before I go any further now is, since my camera position looks good and I don't need the spiral anymore, I'm going to go to my file tree here and right click on it and say hide, so I no longer see the spiral. Also, I turn the origin on and you'll notice I have my blue origin showing, and you may or may not have the plane showing right here. It's worth going to View, Hide Show, and make sure that Planes right here and Origins right here are both turned off, especially if you're not rendering this using the Photo View tools. Once it's all done and I've clicked play to play it through, and it's the way I like it, I will be able to save this animation. One more time through to make sure it looks right, and I'm going to click Save Animation. I notice for sure that it stays as camera view. If it kicks into a different view, you've got a different problem. I'm going to go ahead and save this in my folder for this class, which happens to be Design 7. In Revolve and Sweep as Coffee Mug Full. I'm going to hit Save. Now I'm going to make sure it's on one of the Intel coders. When I click OK, you'll see it twitch all the way through, but don't do anything until it goes all the way through. That's how you know your video is exported completely.